a man who understood responsibility, accountability, a man who himself had risen in rank to become the captain of the guard of Pharaoh's army. And is it amazing that he saw this young Hebrew boy, 17 years of age, maybe by this time he had aged a little bit, I'm not sure, but he saw him and he began to trust him. And see, this is the way it works. You give somebody a responsibility. If they perform it well, then you give them a little bit more responsibility. And then if they perform that well, then you give them a little bit more responsibility, and you begin to watch how they deal with circumstances. And if you find them to be trustworthy, and you find that you can count on them, then after a while, you begin to take some of the restrictions off of them. You begin to take some of the watchfulness. In other words, you don't have to watch them all the time. And then you finally come to this place where you just realize this is just a person of character. He's just got a high character. I can trust him. And the scripture tells us that Potiphar came to a place to where he just turned everything over to this young man, Joseph. He allowed him to just run all of his finances, run the household, everything. He just put it in this young man's hands. And the scripture says that he did not even know everything that he had, because he just so abandoned all of that himself. And he said, look, I got somebody here to handle this. I've got other things to do. And that's just what had happened. And for all reality, this horrible thing that had happened to Joseph, this betrayal of his brothers, this him being sold, all of these horrible things, well, it seemed to have a pretty good flip side to it. And here he is, a young man who had proved himself that he could be trusted, and proved to the fact that he was a man of high character. And so you see that, and you say, well, this is a guy who can be rewarded in life. And we've already read the fact that the scripture says he had already become prosperous. So you say, well, you just kind of kick back now, and life is good. You've performed well. You did all the right things, and that's just a wonderful thing. But life isn't always that way. And the truth of the matter is that life isn't always fair. And sometimes when you think, well, I've done everything right, and then something goes terribly wrong, what do? Well, a lot of times we blame God. That's what we do. We blame God. We get mad at God. And I know a lot of people who are mad at God. And they've turned their back on God and said, I'll never trust God again. Look what God did to me. Well, I'll tell you something. That's a dangerous place for a person to be. Because you see, God still has good things ahead, even though something in the past went terribly wrong. This is Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.